Oh, apparently Otmar isn't coming out to share this. Okay, we've got the first draft of the communique. What we've done is, you've got the paper version that was circulated yesterday. I haven't redone it, simply because all the changes are available on the screen, and we'll go through those if you want to. But I think the major issue that I'll just go through what I've added and why. And the idea at the end of this is that if everybody's happy with this, unless there are people speaking against, that we would agree this as a communique, and that I'll get Otmar to just comment briefly on what the WMA will then do with the communique. So if we just roll through it quickly, the first issue here I mentioned yesterday, a couple of people didn't like the word crisis. I've put in the important issue here that crises arise usually from our being unprepared to deal with something that is happening. So, for example, if you have an earthquake, the numbers of people who die depend upon how well you have built your cities. And if you are well prepared and have built your cities well, as the Japanese have, for example, you may get very few deaths, but you may, in another country with exactly the same earthquake, have far more deaths. The same thing happens with refugees and migrants and mass movements. If we are prepared, they are less of a problem. We are able to handle it. And even though there will always be peaks and troughs, more or less at different times, it's about planning. So really, it's a key issue. Crises come from bad planning by governments. The second issue emphasizes this as well, but also brings in this issue that the way governments have responded has been really quite panicking, but also to introduce discrimination, unfair discrimination against migrants. And it's important because much of the meeting has been about this issue of treating migrants badly. The next change to the text that you had is on page 4, and it's a new paragraph which came from our Turkish colleagues on forced migration. And I'll read it aloud so that it can be translated. Besides these reasons, the earlier paragraph has talked about many reasons for migration. Besides these reasons, military and other measures are occasionally used to force people out of their homes for reasons including changing the ethnic composition of an area. Houses, schools, shops, workplaces, and even cemeteries might be bombed to aid achieving this purpose. So I think you'll agree it's a new concept that we hadn't got in the paper before of forced migration. Oops. The next change is in what is the political dialogue, which is on page 6, halfway down page 6. And we've talked a lot about peace and war. I just want to say the reason this paper does not talk about peace in a great deal of detail and about war and preventing war is there is in parallel another paper being prepared for the WMA led by the Koreans and the Poles about exactly that. And that paper is nearly finished and will be going to the April meeting. But we've added in this there's 2 sentences. Peace must be sought as an end in itself, not simply as a means of reducing the number of refugees. A short-sighted approach to peace is unlikely to find a lasting solution. The important issue here is if you listen to politicians, including the Prime Minister of my country, they talk about peace as a means of reducing the number of refugees and migrants, not as something which is desirable on its own. And clearly peace is what we all want, because we want people to have a peaceful homeland in which to live. If we then go on to the recommendations, there's a new recommendation, number 4, and this follows up the piece on forced migration and was the second paragraph that the Turkish Medical Association gave me. I'll read this as well. This meeting recognizes and condemns the phenomenon of forced migration, which is inhumane and must be stopped. Such cases should be considered for referral to the International Criminal Court. So I think that that picks up the points that people were making about forced migration. In the next paragraph, there were 2 new sections, which I mentioned yesterday, about providing safe, secure, we've got earlier in that paragraph that we should have safe transit routes and safe, secure facilities for housing migrants, whether they're in transit or have reached their final destination country. Now I added in, it must also include treating migrants, including at borders, with respect, ensuring that their dignity is not affected. That was a strong thread of yesterday's discussions. And at the bottom of that paragraph, the new sentence which says, mass detention of refugees is at best undesirable. If it is essential, it must be based upon the provision of excellent living facilities, including opportunities for safe play areas and education opportunities for children. So that brings up something that Didi mentioned, that we need to look at children's welfare beyond just making sure that they're getting health issues directly addressed. In recommendation 7, you all remember that we talked about the number of governments who've said if we treat migrants nicely, then more will come. And we've said instead the concept that treating migrants harshly will discourage future migrants is both absurd and inhumane. And then the next amendment to 9, a number of speakers at different times have talked about the need to ensure that nobody interferes with good ethical practice. It was a very strong steer from the Turkish Medical Association that we needed to be specific about this. So I've added in the sentence, healthcare workers providing care must be enabled to do so without any interference in their professional behavior, including ethical standards. And I apologize, I can't spell standards. There's an N that needs to go in there. And that's the amendments that I've made to the communique. Otmar, do you want to comment on what we'll do with this before people start to say what they think of it?
If I so may.
Microphone? Yeah, come up.
Thank you, Vivienne. In the World Medical Association, it's a prerogative of the General Assembly to make policies. So what we do is if we have conferences and if we have expert groups meeting, we take these documents to the membership of the World Medical Association and provide it as a background for making policy. Policy is the first step of what we do. It can help national medical associations, it can help individual physicians to find a way to their action or to justify their action, which sometimes is also necessary, and it guides also us at the World Medical Association, at the Secretariat and the membership to develop action ourselves with that. Now what I can foresee here from this is first of all a continuation of what we have been doing, namely to work with our partners in the international field, but also with the National Medical Association, and here especially the Turkish Medical Association, in addressing the problems which we have talked about in this communique, which in the past has led to actions in the field and probably will do so in the future because the problems are not going away. But it may also lead to other products of the World Medical Association, what we have been talking about here with Vivienne and others in the room, is that we would like to see how we can develop from a policy further materials so that we can then have something tangible to give to physicians, but also to national medical associations. Leah suggested to develop a toolkit from this, which I think is the most closest part to that, what we can do from that in order to give something to individual physicians, but also to national medical associations. And there were some other ideas coming in how we could proceed with that, which we will then take and distill from that. So this document will go to the members. The next meeting which we have will be our council meeting in April in Buenos Aires, where the delegates to the council will receive this document. And I'm pretty confident that from this also there will be a development of policies on the issue with it. Vivienne also already said there is also another stream of policy development on war and violence that we are developing, and that certainly will complement each other or may be joined at one point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Otmar. Now it's over to you to see if you are happy in general with us adopting this. Yes, there's a speaker at the back. Yep. Someone.
I would like to thank you and congratulate you for the organization of this meeting once more, and especially thank you for preparing this draft communique. I have two suggestions. In such a declaration or communique, I think the first sentence is very, very important, especially for the media when they're quoting. Usually they don't read all the document, but take a couple parts, especially the first sentence. So I would suggest, strongly suggest, that the first sentence also should include such a statement that this current global refugee and migration crisis, due to armed conflicts, wars, prosecution, and violation of human rights, could be added to the first sentence to specify why we are under a crisis of global refugee and migration crisis. I know in the text it is referred as such, but the first sentence might be more strong and clear. Due to armed conflicts, comma, wars, comma, violations of human rights in different parts of the world, or I don't think it's necessary, but wars and violations of human rights and armed conflicts might be enough to cover the current situation's main reasons. My second suggestion is, again, this time to the end of the document, which will also might be important to appeal some more international interest, is in fact 3 sentences I would suggest.
Just a second, please.
Yes,
what we're not doing is we're not doing editing here on the text. We take the ideas back.
Yeah, sure.
And we can discuss, but we lose too much time if we do this because we have another 10 minutes to go and then we have to wrap up. Thank you.
I'm sure
please, your next idea. No,
yeah.
it's well heard, but I think we can incorporate this.
Sure.
But let's not do it now in a wordsmith.
Yeah,
give your.
Yeah, I'm sure you would work on it, review on it, but I just want to announce my suggestions, and I'm sure WMA will be pleased to receive propositions and suggestions from this group. My second suggestion is about inviting the international all medical organizations to improve their collaboration as an international solidarity with WMA to stress on these suggestions. You could formulate it as you wish, but it should be emphasizing that the physicians of the world are well aware that about 80% of the diseases are due to low, poor living conditions. Second, connected to this, physicians of the world are well aware, very well aware, that wars, besides others, destroy the basic living conditions. So hence, physicians of the world should invite all the international medical societies, associations, to work on peace efforts. Thank you very much.
We can do it. Yeah.
Thank you. I think both are reasonable ideas.
Yeah. Microphone to mid-left, thank you.
Thank you very much again. I'm Çetin Atasoy, the chairperson of Ankara Medical Chamber. I'll recommend the rewording of the second sentence of the recommendation number 9, which states that we demand that destination countries ensure that migrants and refugees get access to medical services on a par with their settled population. I recommend addition of free of charge in this sentence, so that the sentence will read as, we demand that destination countries ensure that migrants and refugees get access to medical services free of charge on a par with their settled population. This is because those migrants and refugees are not on a par, are not equal with the settled population. They are mostly unemployed, they don't have money to pay for the medical services, so I think this is necessary. Thank you.
We would carefully disagree with that. There is never free of charge healthcare. Healthcare always has to be paid for. What you probably mean is free of charge at the point of service. So the equality is the point here which we have to stress. I think that is what you want to say, so that people are not barred from that because they cannot pay and they have to get the same healthcare as anybody else. But to speak about healthcare free of charge is an illusion. Everywhere in the world, healthcare has to be paid for.
Yeah, I think
by somebody at least.
Think of a way of putting it, yeah.
So we will find a way to include your point, but it's about equality, and that has to be mentioned in there. Andre, please.
Yes, thank you, Vivienne, for this document that we discussed this morning. The impression I have is that it is a little bit too long. 7 pages is maybe too much, and the document could be maybe summarized or extracted phrases.
Yeah, it's not a policy, it's a background document.
Yeah, okay.
For that, it's not a problem.
Yeah, okay.
So, Andre, certainly when we come to a policy from that, it will not be 7 pages, for sure.
Okay.
And in addition, if we wanted to use the background document, if we were writing to, say, a group of ministers to get them to do something, we would send a page-long letter that gave very deep, very precise, but you might then also send the background paper for further information, knowing that the minister mightn't read it, but some of the people advising the minister might. That would be the hope.
If there is no other comment, then I would like to give an applause to Vivienne for the work, and by that consenting to that statement. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank the Turkish Medical Association, who've been tremendous help in making sure we didn't miss anything. Thank you.